Rumpole and the Angel of Death by John Mortimer. Read by Leo McKern. Rumpole and the Rights of Man. A toast to Mr. Rumpole, our fellow European. The faces around me were pink and smiling encouragingly. Was I European? I supposed so, although I'd never thought of it before. And also to you, Mr. Rumpole. The toastmaster raised his glass to me. The defender of human rights. Well, I had to tell them I'm not exactly that. I mean, I spend most of my time defending people. Defend their rights. Peter Fishlock, my instructing solicitor, who had travelled with me from England, was a great one for rights and for the Society for a Written Constitution, of which he was, as he kept telling me, chair. I'm not so sure about that either, I said. I'm defending their wrongs quite often, their errors and foolish ways. I suppose I look on the law as a sort of disease, and I'm the doctor who tries to cure his patients of it as quickly as possible. That is only your English modesty speaking, sir, Mr. Rumpole. A reassuring female voice sounded somewhere above my head. Betsy Hopprecht, a young German lawyer with an encyclopedic knowledge of the ways of the European Court, had appointed herself my general protector for the purposes of the present proceedings. I think we know where Mr. Rumpole's heart is, and I think it's in the right place. I propose a toast, then. Governor Williamson, the rimless Swede and professor of international law, had his slender glass refilled. To Mr. Rumpole's heart. Oh, please, I begged. Couldn't we drink to something a little less embarrassing, like the common agricultural policy? Come on, Rumpole. We all know you spend your time defending the underdog. This came from Jeremy Jameson, member of the European Parliament, who had come with a half-smiling and mostly silent woman. The Euro MP had introduced her simply as Poppy. Jameson spoke with a kind of contemptuous amusement. Defending the underdog brought you to Strasbourg, to all these perfectly marvellous restaurants with a side salad of human rights. The great thing about underdogs, I reminded him, is that they're usually on legal aid. Don't know why we wanted to go into Europe anyway? A deep-voiced woman boomed at us. All a lot of bloody nonsense. They want us to grow square strawberries. They must be potty. She had been introduced as Lady Mary Parslow, the wife of Eddie Parslow, the neat, pretty-faced man from the consular service. Come along, Mr. Rumpole, speak up. Don't you think it's potty? You can't be too happy about it. Mr. Rumpole is contented because he can enjoy a good dinner and also serves a cause of justice. Betsy had also appointed herself my official spokesman. But there's someone over there who's not so happy, I'm just thinking. Our company turned to glance at the man sitting under an elaborate mural depicting an unfortunate and blood-stained moment during the 30 Years' War. I didn't turn. I had seen His Honour, Judge Billy Bloxham, when he came in. He had stared past me as though he hoped I didn't exist. It had all started at the Bank Underground station. George Freeling was 43 years old, with a wife and 2 children at Buckhurst Hill. Each night at approximately 5:45, Mr. Freeling struggled down the tube. Standing on the edge of the platform, Freeling fell in front of a train as it rattled out of the darkness on its way from St. Paul's. He was found to have been shot in the back. A revolver with a silencer and a single blue glove made of polyester and wool were lying between the lines and beside his dead body. Sandra Atherton, a secretary from Citibank, saw a young man of Middle Eastern appearance apparently push Freeling in the back before he fell. She lost sight of him in the crowd, but then she saw him again running towards the exit. She called to the guard, who gave chase, followed by some other passengers who also thought they'd seen Freeling pushed. Among them Vernon Winstanley, a young stockbroker, and Emily Brotherton, a tea-lady. Amin Hashimi was stopped as he was leaving the station, and the city police were sent for. The three named witnesses made a positive identification. Later, when Hashimi was examined forensically, fibres similar to those in the blue glove were found in microscopic quantity under the fingernails of his right hand. Peter Fishlock got the case, thanks to a friend in the magistrate's court, and as I had just won a rather tricky affray and criminal damage for him, he was wise enough to instruct Horace Rumpole for the defence. The case came on before His Honour Judge Bloxham. I can't say I had embarked on the defence of Mr. Hashimi with any high hopes of success. The most I could do, I thought, was to unsettle the identification evidence, have a bit of harmless fun on the subject of wool and polyester fibres, and point to the great weakness of the prosecution case, the complete absence of any sort of motive for the alleged assassination of George Freeling. "You had never met this man Freeling?" I asked the accused. "Never. Never had I spoken to him." "Did you know anything about Netherbank, where Freeling worked?" "I had heard of it, of course." "Not much more?" We were sitting in the interview room in Brixton, and I thought that Mr. Hashimi might appeal to the women on the jury. He looked young enough to be mothered. I told him that I would do my best for him, and he told me, "We are in the hands of Allah, the compassionate and merciful. He ordains life and death and has power over all things." As the gates of the prison-house closed behind us, and we squeezed into Peter Fishlock's small Japanese motor, I said, "We have one bright spot in a rather gloomy prospect." "The absence of motive?" "No, the presence of His Honour Judge Bloxham." "I thought Billy Bloxham disapproved of foreign students using the health service." "Well, better than that. He's allergic to any sort of alien." "How's that going to help Amin?" "Because if we can get Billy to show his hand, if we can needle the old darling into a quaint little display of racial prejudice, then we can present a bigoted Bloxham to the jury, and they might decline to obey orders. If Allah, the compassionate, wants a way for Amin Hashimi to walk, then Billy's going to lead him to it." "Now, Miss Atherton, you say you saw a young man of Middle Eastern appearance push the victim's back as the train was about to stop." "I saw the man in the dock do that." "I suggest the first time you had a good look face-to-face at my client, Mr. Hashimi, was when he was stopped on his way out of the station. You came up and identified him?" "I did, yes." "Oh, come now, Miss Atherton. Don't all Middle Eastern young men look rather similar to you? Are you sure you could have told two of them apart?" I smiled towards the bench, waiting for Billy to let his prejudices show. To my dismay, he did nothing of the sort. "Let us continue, Mr. Rumpole, and let us do so without reference to creed or colour." Bloxham had decided, I now realized, to play a particularly mean trick on the defence. He was going to give us a fair trial. Vernon Winstanley, the stockbroker, and Emily Brotherton were hardly less sure of their identification. I let them both go as soon as possible, but spent a good deal of the time cross-examining the fibre expert. In my final speech, given, I had to say, with even more than my usual eloquence, I dwelt on the uncertainty of identification evidence, and I gave the jury at least 20 minutes on the absence of motive. What was my client, Amin Hashimi, meant to be? A criminal lunatic who killed at random just for kicks? Nothing in his history could support such a theory. I sank into my seat, tired and sweating. I had done my best, and I could only hope that Billy Bloxham would put his foot in it. He didn't. It was an appallingly fair summing up. I said good-bye to my client after Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful, had failed to come up trumps. Amin Hashimi, as calm as ever, thanked me politely and said, "I have nothing to regret, Mr. Rumpole." A few weeks later, however, the Compassionate One arranged something that might possibly provide an escape route for my imprisoned client. His Honour Judge Bloxham was invited to a rugby club dinner somewhere near his home in the Midlands, and he was asked to sing for his supper. "End immigration to end crime. Judge thankful to have got one more Arab student behind bars." So screamed the headline in Hilda's Daily Telegraph, which I saw as we sat at breakfast in the mansion flat. "Your Judge Bloxham," she said, crunching toast, "seems to have been rather a silly Billy." "He seems to have said it all a bit too late." I borrowed Hilda's paper. "Anyway, he's not my judge. I want no part of him." I suppose it was bad luck in a way. Billy Bloxham wasn't to know that some eager young rugby-playing reporter, fresh from the local Echo, was writing shorthand on the back of a menu and would communicate the highlights to the Press Association. The report in the Daily Telegraph was fairly full. I quote, "A great many of these towel-headed gentry come here as so-called students to escape the tough laws of their own countries. I don't know how much studying they do, but they certainly have time for plenty of extracurricular activities. They take special courses in drug dealing and theft of quality cars. I have to tell you, gentlemen, that when my jury brought in a guilty verdict on the murderer Hashimi, I had a song in my heart. I retired to my room and invited my dear old usher, ex-Sergeant Major Wrigglesworth of the Blues and the Royals, to join me in a glass of sherry. 'Well done, sir,' Wrigglesworth said. 'You managed to pot the bastard.' 'One down,' I replied, 'and thousands left to go.'" When I got into chambers, Fishlock, the human rights solicitor, was already there. "Flagrantly biased. No doubt at all about that. So what do we do now?" "We get whoever was the mole in the rugby club to swear an affidavit and troop off to the Court of Appeal." "I am not an habitué of the Court of Appeal. One judge is bad enough, but the Appeal Court comes equipped with 3. "Mr. Rumpole," the Lord of Appeal in Ordinary, pronounced my name as though he regretted having stepped on it. "Will you be so good as to refer us to any passage in the transcript of the trial in which the learned judge made any sort of biased remark to the jury concerning your client, Mr. Hashimi?" "Hashimi, my lord, as it so happens." "Oh, I'm so sorry. I do beg your pardon. Hashimi, then. Well, Mr. Rumpole, will you now refer us to the passages in the transcript?" "In the transcript of the speech at the rugby club? The judge couldn't have made his views more absolutely clear." "Do remind us, Mr. Rumpole. The jury wasn't impanelled to sit in judgment at the rugby club dinner, was it?" "No, my lord, but by the time that event took place, the jury had reached a verdict after an unbiased summing up, had they not?" "His after-dinner diatribe, his post-prandial peroration, my lord, shows exactly what the judge had in mind." "Mr. Rumpole, we all may have things on our minds. It's what's said in court that matters. We don't live our entire lives in the courtroom. What's my client to think now? What's any reasonable man to think? That he was tried unfairly by a biased judge. Is that your best point?" "Indeed it is." "Your first point is that your client was tried by a judge who successfully concealed his true feelings?" "And secondly, that he did so deliberately to secure a conviction." Mr. Rumpole, your first point was the best one. I read from the Telegraph. When my jury brought in a guilty verdict on the murderer Hashimi, I had a song in my heart. How can you possibly say that's not biased? Words which he did not utter at the trial? Words which show exactly how he felt at the trial. Mr. Rumpole, I think we are now seized of your argument. It came as no surprise when we lost, and leave to appeal to the House of Lords was refused. I'm afraid I had to tell my solicitor, Fishlock. It looks like the end of the line. Not exactly. He looked like a man possessed of a well-kept secret. What about Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights? Everyone is entitled to a fair hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. That's what I had in mind. Oh, so we're off to The Hague, are we? Oh, you may be, Mr. Rumpole, but the Court of Human Rights sits in Strasbourg. Oh, of course, that's the one I meant. So you're going to brief me in Strasbourg, are you? It'll make a change from the Uxbridge Magistrates' Court. I hear you're off to Europe, Rumpole. Soapy Sam Ballard looked at me with incredulity and distaste. Well, you've got to be prepared to travel when you've got an international practice like mine. I understand, and I am perfectly prepared to travel, Rumpole. Oh, going far? I'm coming with you, of course. In a case of this importance, you'll be in need of a leader, preferably one from Chambers. Oh, I don't think so, old Arnie. My instructing solicitor is prepared to leave it to me. The rights of man, you know, are rather my spécialité de la maison. So the long journey started, which ended up over the Choucroute and the Water of Life in the Grimm's fairy tale Kammerzell house in Strasbourg. As Jeremy Jameson collected the bill to put in with his euro expenses, I plodded off toward the facilities. As I stood in front of the porcelain, I was conscious of a shrunken figure at the far end of the row of stalls. Judge Bloxham turned to face me. He uttered one word pronounced like a curse from a dry throat. Rumpole. I gave him time to get away and then returned to the dining room, only to discover that, as rare things will, all my new-found friends had vanished. At that moment, I felt I was in Europe, a stranger and alone. Walking back to the hotel in the moonlight, I looked at my watch, almost 11 on a Saturday night. I decided to see the astronomical clock put on its hourly performance. The shadowy cathedral was empty. I put in a coin, and the clock towered above me in golden light with its minarets and huge dials. As I looked up at these wonders, I was conscious of a tallish tourist standing beside me. I thought how badly his clothes went with the wonders of 16th-century science and architecture. A red plastic anorak with Les droits de l'homme written on it, trousers that looked as though they'd been made in a computer, and a basketball hat which bore the insignia of the common market. Then 11 struck. The heavens began to whir and move at the command of the master clockmaker. As the slow strokes died away and all the devices of the clock shuddered to a standstill, a voice with which I was unfortunately familiar said, "The Continentals are clever fellows, aren't they? Bollard, what on earth are you doing here?" "I shall be in the case on Monday, as you would know, Rumpole, if you were in the habit of reading your papers before going into court. But I shall be appearing for a slightly more reputable client than your Mr. Hashimi." "Oh, really? Who is that?" "Her Majesty's Government. I am here to support Lord Justice Ponting's opinion in the Court of Appeal." You mean you're for the HMG of the UK?
Exactly so.
But you didn't do the case at the Bailey or in the Court of Appeal?
Quite right. But with the international importance this matter has now achieved, with the entire reputation of the UK judiciary at stake, it was thought by HMG that a counsel should be chosen who would be likely to have some influence over you.
Why on earth would you have any influence over me?
Well, HMG thought that as I am undoubtedly your head of chambers and therefore placed in some position of authority,
HMG thought that might curb my excesses?
Naturally. We don't want to cause poor old Bloxham public embarrassment, do we?
Oh, don't we? I've been looking forward to it for months.
Perhaps we should talk over a drink.
Oh, you can buy me a drink at any time. I was kind enough to tell him.
Thank you, Rumpole. Hilda's not with you, is she?
Mrs. Rumpole, I told him with some dignity, has gone to stay with her friend Dodo Mackintosh in Cornwall.
I wouldn't want Marguerite to hear that wives were allowed. I told her this was strictly no spouses.
How did she take that?
Not too well, I'm afraid. But I told her when you're appearing for HMG, confidential matters may arise.
Baloney.
Well, I have to confess, Rumpole, that the idea of being fancy-free on an agreeable little trip to the continent did rather appeal to me. I thought I might stay on for a couple of days. I took the opportunity of buying some holiday gear this afternoon.
You mean that rig-out? You look as though you're going in for the Tour de France.
You only flew over this morning, didn't you? That must be exhausting for you at your age. I expect you're longing for your bed. Well, mustn't keep you.
So what are you going to do? Hang around until the clock strikes another hour?
Never you mind, Rumpole. There are better things to do in Strasbourg than waiting for the clock to strike, I'm bound to tell you.
As I left the cathedral, I saw in the shadows of an empty pew a fair head bent in prayer. To my surprise, Betsy Hopprecht was kneeling, no doubt interdenominationally, calling on the god of the clock to ally himself with the merciful, the compassionate, for the protection of Amin Hashimi. It was a short walk to the Hotel d'Ange Rouge. I lay in bed reading the written brief to the Court of Human Rights. I heard the cathedral clock strike 1, and then I turned out my light. It was a warm spring night, and the window onto the little balcony that overlooked the square was open and the curtain flapping. The window of the next room must have been open also, and I heard the sound of a strong woman, who sounded very much like Betsy Hopprecht, laughing. The full and disturbing significance of this was not revealed to me until the next morning, however. When setting out eagerly for breakfast, I saw none other than Soapy Sam Ballard emerge from the next-door room in question. It was Sunday, a day of rest and respite. Breakfast was held in a small, hot room which I found to be crowded. The only seat I could find was at a table set for 3, at which Jeremy Jameson's friend, the curly-headed Poppy, was already installed. I asked if I could sit down. "Oh, why not? Jeremy won't be here for hours." I put in a request for ham and eggs and looked thoughtfully back towards my head of chambers. I tried to see him in a new light. Casanova Ballard? Soapy Don Juan? Lord Byron Ballard? "Bloody Europe!" Poppy exclaimed. "Oh, so you're a Eurosceptic?" "Sceptic's not the word for it. Other people get taken to the Seychelles or the Caribbean or even Acapulco. All I see of the world is Brussels and Luxembourg and Strasbourg." "Oh, aren't we going on a trip round the wine towns?" "You haven't done that before?" "No." "Jeremy and I have done it almost more times than we've had sex. And do you know what the aim and object of the whole exercise is?
Yes, you're right. A socking great lunch. The Tokay d'Alsace tasted of grapes, a gentle flavour far removed from the chemical impact of Pomeroy's reasonable white. Our whole team is here. I was sitting next to Betsy. All of us are behind you, Mr. Rumpole. Not that little chap from the consular service, surely? Isn't he on the side of HM government? Well, he should be, of course. That is where his duty lies. But his heart is with us, Mr. Rumpole. He has read all of your memoirs, he tells me. Is that really so? I looked down the table at Eddie Parslow with a new respect. What about Samuel Ballard, Q.C.? You didn't think of inviting him? Mr. Ballard, I have to correct you. Ballard is his name. I know that perfectly well. So why do you call him by the wrong name, then? I suppose in the hope of irritating him. But he is a very nice man, also. He is your boss, I think. You think wrong, I had to tell her. He is head of your chambers. I am a free spirit and a freelance advocate. You are not afraid of him? Of course not. I wanted to ask her if she found Soapy Sam Ballard was a good lover, but my courage failed me. In any event, we were interrupted by an even louder hoot from Lady Mary. That shower running Europe couldn't organize a village fete in Gloucestershire, I have to tell you. You've got to admit, Lady Mary, Peter Fishlock came galloping to the defence of Europe, the common market has kept peace in Europe. Oh, yes. Didn't I read somewhere they're blowing each other up in Bosnia, or whatever you call it, shooting children in playgrounds, ethnic cleansing? But I suppose Yugoslavia's not in Europe. Where is it, China or somewhere? Worse than that. Poppy was reading a bit out of her mail on Sunday. Saddam Hussein's buying stolen Russian nuclear weapons. We're all going to get blown up. There was a sudden, strangely uncomfortable silence. Then Betsy leant across the table and took the paper out of Poppy's hands, and turning the pages of the paper said, Here's some really important news. Your Princess Fergie is short of cash. They all relaxed. The world crisis was clearly over, forgotten in the important news. You must have got to know Ballard before I arrived, I said to Betsy. He is a very charming man. And you say you only got to know him a little? Enough to know that he will take a civilized attitude tomorrow. I think you will find him very reasonable. He asked me to be reasonable, too. What did you say? I said I had no intention of being reasonable. It was at that point that the bill arrived and was grabbed by Jeremy Jameson, MEP, with a cry of, I need this for my expenses. He announced that he was writing out a cheque and could he borrow a pen from someone. I lent him mine and happened to see a cheque-book of an unusual mauve variety. I also saw that our lunch was to be paid for by funds lodged in Netherbank of Queen Victoria Street, London. And I remembered that the unfortunate George Freeling, shot and pushed under a train, was an employee of that institution. Fresh air, Tokay, and a dislike of myself for feeling jealous of Soapy Sam Ballard ended in exhaustion, and I had decided to call it a day and sink into bed when the telephone rang, and what sounded much like a voice from the tomb said, Is that you, Horace? This is Judge Bloxham speaking. I say, could you spare me 5 minutes, old fellow? I'm in a bar quite near your hotel. I didn't want to talk to him, yet I had to go and meet the old idiot. I hadn't far to go, a small dark bar in the Rue des Juifs, close to the cathedral. After polite preliminaries, Bloxham got down to the nitty-gritty. I was entrapped, Horace. You do realize that, don't you? I'll complain to the press council. It was pure bad luck. Could have happened to anybody. Anybody wasn't a judge, I said, who just sentenced a foreign student to life imprisonment. I was giving voice to my private opinions, as I'm entitled to do. I didn't say any of that in court, did I? No. That's what I've really got against you. You think that might have helped you? If I'd said what I thought about foreigners? I'm damn sure it would. Horace, the next time you're before me, I'll do my best to help you. I'll say exactly what I think. Horace, you won't put the case too strongly against me, will you, old boy? Oh, don't despair. The sight of the man was beginning to pain me. You mean you'll go easy on me? Billy cheered up a fraction. I mean I may not win. Why, who's on the other side? Samuel Ballard, Q.C. No, he doesn't often win. The judge was back in the slough of despond. Oh, it's got to happen sometime. Anyway, the Euro judges may not want to upset the British government. But the British government's always upsetting them. I've got to get to bed. I stood up then. I was fighting to keep awake. Good night, Billy. Remember, the trial isn't decided until it's over. I hadn't gone far along the Rue des Juifs when two things startled me into full wakefulness. First of all, I saw an all-too-familiar red anorak and blue basketball cap moving not altogether steadily in the road in front of me. Then I heard the sudden acceleration of an engine behind me. An anonymous dark blue car thundered past and appeared to be aiming for Ballard's back. Just before it reached him, he skipped with hare-like agility onto the pavement. The car then reversed with a snort of the engine and vanished down the street. I emerged from the shadows as a second shock to my shaken head of Chambers. "My God, Rumpole," he said, "these Continentals are the most terrible drivers." Back at the hotel, I said, "I'm not sure about bad drivers, Ballard. It looked to me as if it might have been deliberate." Ballard was still in a state of shock. "I shall have to be careful," he complained. "Now I'll be coming to Strasbourg on a regular basis." "A regular basis?" "I've been talking to Betsy." "So I understand." "And there's a need for senior counsel who understand the importance of human rights." "And does Betsy know about your long record as a persecutor? I mean, you're here to protect a biased judge." "I think she knows as well as anyone, Rumpole, that I'm an extremely fair man." "That's all right, then." I poured out a further medicinal glass. "Ballard, does it occur to you that what happened in the street wasn't an accident?" "The car was out of control." "It seemed very much in control to me." "What do you mean?" "Someone may not like you." "Who?" "Someone who took exception to your amorous adventures." "Rumpole, I have no idea what you're talking about." "Wasn't Betsy in your room rather late last night?" "Of course she was." "Well, then." "We were discussing human rights." "I suppose that's another way of describing it." It was Monday morning, the day dedicated to the rights of Amin Hashimi, who had brought me to Europe, and who, except for that moment when I had seen a cheque drawn on Netherbank, I had almost forgotten in a series of expensive and eventful meals. "Mr. Rumpole?" The voice of the presiding judge, a Dutchman, boomed electronically over the vast hall of death. "We have read the submission filed on behalf of your client. Would you now speak to your paper?" Speak to my paper? It didn't sound much of an audience. I'd been used to speaking to my jury.
Now I was in contact only by microphone with the remote international platoon of 7 judges. The translators were noiselessly mouthing my words in various languages. "I haven't much to say to the paper, my lords, but I have a point of the greatest importance to make to your lordships." I waited in silence. At long last the Irishman was good enough to then say, "And what is your point, Mr. Rumpole?" "My point is that the learned judge in this case was not only biased but bluffing, not only prejudiced but perfidious. In fact, he might stand, if your lordships will allow the phrase, as the personification of perfidious Albion." I saw His Honour Judge Billy Bloxam looking at me with ill-concealed hatred. "Perfidious what, Mr. Rumpole?" "Albion, my lord, an expression once popular on the continent of Europe in which you now sit. It described the hypocrisy and slyness of a certain class of Englishmen." "You are using the expression to describe the learned judge in this case?" The Finn's English was almost too perfect, but he looked extremely interested. "Indeed I am. We all know the judge was prejudiced. He hated foreign students, and he made that perfectly clear in his speech to the ruggerbuggers." "To the what?" To the rugby football players' annual dinner. You see, this is the point I wish to impress on your lordships. We all have prejudices. You may have prejudices. But did the perfidious judge admit his prejudices? If he had, we'd have all known where we were. The jury could have marked its disapproval of such views by a not guilty verdict. I could have made considerable use of them in my final speech. Justice would not only have been done, but would clearly have been seen to have been done. But what did Judge Bloxam do? He decided to dissemble. He made up his mind to deceive. He set about to defraud. He very deliberately acted the part of a totally unbiased judge, something which hardly exists in this imperfect world. And so, when he belatedly showed himself in his true colours, what was the unfortunate Mr. Hashimi to think? What could he think? Except that his trial had been an elaborate charade, performed by a judge with the clear intention of deceiving the jury, which was bad, and the counsel for the defence, which was, in my humble submission, unpardonable. Then I sat down and applied the red and white spotted handkerchief to the slightly less fevered brow. Fishlock whispered, "Well done." Jameson gave me an admiring look, and Betsy's eyes were glowing. And then Soapy Sam Ballard completely ruined my triumph by more or less throwing in the towel. "Having heard Mr. Rumpole," the faint heart representing Her Majesty's government began, "we cannot argue that the words spoken by the learned judge at the rugby club dinner would not be considered prejudice by any reasonable man or woman. This must be borne in mind by the court when considering if Amin Hashimi received a fair hearing by an impartial tribunal within the terms of Article 6 of the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights." Betsy said we should get the result in 3 to 6 months, and there was little doubt what it would be. "So, Mr. Rumpole, you have fought the good fight." "Too easy," Sam Ballard chucked in his hand. "He is very conscious of the importance we all attach to human rights. I told him that we need lawyers with such a fine record as you have, Mr. Rumpole." "And did you tell him that a lot of European cases might come his way if he showed himself a good libertarian?" Betsy Hopprecht and I were standing by a table at the airport bar. "You had a good many little chats with Soapy Sam, didn't you? It's always best to get to know the opposition. You were in his room at night, weren't you? We drank beer out of his refrigerator, certainly. And Article 6 of the Convention was your pillow talk. Pillow talk? I think I don't know that phrase, pillow talk. Were you and Sam in bed together? Me and Mr. Ballard in bed together? What a ridiculous idea! You must be making a very big joke, Mr. Rumpole. Jeremy Jameson was coming towards us with his hand around 3 eau de vies, and I felt an immediate need to slip off to the gents. When I came back, the bar was even fuller. I pushed my way towards the table in the corner and saw Betsy and Jameson with their heads together. My hearing isn't altogether what it was, and I can't be sure of this, but I think I heard the MEP say, he won't talk now. He'll soon be on his way home." Then they clinked their glasses together, drank, and Betsy turned and saw me. I had a distinct feeling that I wasn't at that moment a welcome sight. "Who won't talk now?" I asked her. "Oh, no one you know, I think. We were discussing another case altogether." A bright spring turned into a long, wet summer, and then, in September, pale sunshine returned. Peter Fishlock rang to say that we had won an almighty success in Strasbourg, and Betsy and Jeremy and all our friends sent greetings and congratulations. I sat at breakfast that Saturday morning and felt curiously little elation. My joie de vivre was at a low level that weekend anyway, as Hilda's old school friend Dodo McIntosh was inhabiting the mansion flat, in return for the hospitality she had shown to She Who Must in Cornwall during the Hashimi appeal. "Dodo has suggested a trip to Kingslake, Rumpole. She says the garden has been thrown open to the public. So you'd better gulp down that coffee. We're going to make an early start." I saw it was no time for argument. She has to be obeyed. When, after what seemed a lifetime of alternative bursts of boredom and terror, we got to Kingslake, it proved to be a greenish-grey Regency house in a poor state of repair. It was about midday, and the alcohol content of the Rumpole blood had fallen to a dangerous point. Muttering something about a search for the gents, I stole away through the rose garden and down the gravel paths between the greenhouses. Round a corner I came to what I took to be a back door of the house. It was open, and I had a view of a stone passageway. I also saw a wooden table with a tray-like top holding a welcoming collection of bottles, some glasses, and a corkscrew. A desperate plan crossed my mind. I would pour myself a large snort, leave a more than adequate supply of money, and retreat to a quiet refuge behind the cucumber frames. I was advancing on the drinks table when a door opened further down the hallway and a voice boomed, "The house is not, repeat, not open to the public." It was Lady Mary Parslow, looking wind-blown, and armed with what I took to be an extra-large gin and tonic. She looked at me and said, "By God, it's you." I'm sorry, is this your house?" "Eddie's house. His family house, as it so happens. He's in London, trying to assess the damage you've done." "Damage?" "Peddling human rights." "What human rights?" "The right to get us all blown up, is that your idea of freedom?" You're talking about the Hashimi case?" "And I'm talking about your friend Fraulein Hopprecht
and that dreadful fat member of the European Parliament.
Oh, I thought they were your friends too. You and your husband were at dinner.
Eddie was there to see what they were up to. He knew perfectly well, of course. Not that we'll ever prove anything now that your Mr. Hashimi has walked away from us. Oh, you know what I'm talking about.
I'm afraid I don't. Can I ask you a question?
I suppose so. I don't promise I'll answer it.
Can I have a drink? I'll pay for it, I told her.
Pay for it? Oh, you think that makes it all right, don't you? You think everything's all right if you pay, or someone pays you. How much did they pay you? The gun runners.
I got legal aid from the courts of Strasbourg. Who were the gun runners, exactly?
Well, not guns, was it? Well, something much more than guns. You honestly don't know?
Honestly?
Then you should. You should know what you've done to the world. Don't let it go any further. Eddie would kill me, but I think you bloody well ought to know.
Quarter of an hour later, I walked across the garden alone. Should I have guessed? Were there moments that should have told me the truth? Betsy grabbing a newspaper, a car threatening Ballard, a few words overheard in the bar at Strasbourg airport. Should these things have told me the truth? And was I getting too old to take the hint? Hilda and Dodo were walking towards me.
Rumpole, where have you been?
Oh, here and there. I had a look inside the house.
You've been drinking.
I've been listening.
Who to?
A woman who owns this garden. I met her when I was doing a case.
Oh, was it one you lost?
No, I won it, unfortunately. Whose fault was it that the truth never emerged, and that deadly Russian weapons were still being traded to Iran? Was it my fault or Ballard's fault? Was it all because Billy Bloxham let his prejudice show at a rugby club dinner? Or because a cub reporter heard what he said? Or because a new court had been invented to take care of the rights of man? Who should I blame? Or was I to blame myself? These questions would never have occurred to me, but for an encounter with a half-drunk woman who had thrown her garden open to the public. What she had told me were official secrets, and included the fact that the arms trade was being financed through Netherbank in London, and that the deceased George Freeling was an investigator. So my young Iranian client, a servant of the arms dealers, among whom Betsy and Jameson were numbered, was chosen to silence him forever. My job had been to get him out of prison before he decided to talk in exchange for parole. These important facts, like Billy Bloxham's racist opinions, never saw the light in the Old Bailey. I was looking forward to Monday and a receiving of stolen fish at Acton. It had nothing to do with human rights at all.